So let's talk about wrist and elbow mobility. Let's talk about how you can screen for it at home. It can be somewhat challenging, but I'm going to give you a couple mile markers and a couple minor tests you can do for yourself. So first motion we need to look at here is going to be what we call wrist flexion. Wrist flexion is basically, let's say I have my elbow bent like this and I just let my wrist drop. That's going to be wrist flexion. But I want to not let it drop, I want to kind of reach for it. Some people will notice that their fingers will start to curl a little bit like this. So all I want you to do is just, can you do each together and kind of look, if you're in a mirror, what does this curve look like here versus this? Is one farther than the other? Are they symmetrical? Are they even? And if it doesn't hurt, that's a great thing. But one thing that we can do so we can check our own wrist joint is going to be, let's bring the wrist down into flexion, give some overpressure, so make sure you're pushing above the knuckles, not below them, because if you do below, you're just going to be checking your fingers. Just push here on the back of the hand, push down. You'll feel maybe like a gentle stretch, or for some of you, it might be uncomfortable and painful. That might mean at some of those end ranges, you might have a joint issue. And then all I want you to do is simply just compare your overpressures to both sides. And if something hurts, one side hurts versus the other, means that some of the mobility exercises or maybe strengthening exercises is something you might have to do. We'll get into those later. Next motion we want to look at is that's pretty easy to assess, is going to be wrist extension, okay? So with wrist extension, it's just going to be my elbow's bent here, I'm coming backwards, okay? Let's compare right to left, okay? Do they look even? Do they look symmetrical? Maybe my right side isn't as great as my left, but same kind of thing here. Can I give it overpressure? Palm of the hand. How does that feel? Does it feel kind of bouncy, springy, nothing at all, I don't feel anything? That means great. My wrist joint and extension is perfect. Here, I need to get more palm, sorry. A little discomfort, maybe something I need to work on, okay? And especially if you're someone who maybe you do a lot of push-ups or you lift weights, holding the bar up here like this, that might mean you might need to improve your wrist extension. Another simple assessment you could simply do is just, if this is tough for you to look at in the mirror and you can't quite determine, bring my hands together, like, and then see, do my elbows flare out? Do my forearms, are they symmetrical? Does that hurt at all? And you could feel pain either in the palm side or the top side. Might mean something you have to work on, okay? So that's how you give overpressure and assess wrist flexion and extension. Those are going to be two major movements for us, okay? The next thing we got to look at here is going to be forearm rotation. The elbow and the wrist work together to rotate our forearms like this, but a way to ensure that we don't use our shoulders, our humerus bone, which is going to be above the elbow to the shoulder, is to make sure that our elbows are bent. Because if I have my arm extended out like this, I'm using a lot of my shoulder, okay? So keep the elbows tucked in by the side. Next thing we're going to do is we're just going to turn our palms palm down. And same thing, use a mirror, see, are these even? Is one kind of kitty wampus going at a diagonal here? Is one shorter than the other? And if it looks good, great. If you want to give yourself some overpressure to check, see how those wrist and elbow joint contribute, let's do that. I'll show you how to do it. So what I want you to do is just go ahead, take a grip like this, and what I would do is I would get into pronation like this, where the palm's facing the ground, and I would go above my wrist and I would grab up here like this, okay? And I would just try to give myself overpressure, trying to bring my hand more like this, right? But I'm not doing it actively with my hand, I'm doing it with this arm here. Just a very subtle movement. You can see my thumb drop there a little bit. Same thing. Does it feel good, comfortable, nice little stretch? You're probably okay. If there's any discomfort, probably something we got to work on that I'm going to show you later that we can work on improving. And then compare the other side. Okay, so that's pronation. Supination is the next movement. We say, hey, we're carrying a can of soup. We carry things palm up, right? The world we live in, we carry things with our palms up like this. We do heavy things like this. So this is pretty important here. Same thing, I'm in the mirror comparing right to left. Do I notice a difference? Maybe my right here, I'm looking in the mirror here. Maybe my right is a little different, okay? But it feels fine. Next thing I'll do is, okay, if it's painful, something to work on. If it feels okay, let's check overpressure, let's check the joint. Same thing, We're gonna go, same grip, we're gonna go below the wrist here, grab on our pinky side, and you're just gonna turn and then use that hand, that thumb, to kind of rotate the palm more up. You can see that thumb just kind of drops slightly there. Or you could go from the other side here and use more of your palm to try to rotate it. Does it hurt when you do that? If it hurts, something to work on. If not, you're doing well. Okay? Or else if it's, you're lacking range of motion, this is something certainly we'll talk about later, okay? So we've looked at forearm rotation, looked at wrist flexion, extension. Last thing to check is elbow extension and flexion. So simple way we can screen elbow flexion here is just simply going thumbs up here and trying to see how far are our thumbs from our shoulder roughly, okay? Using a mirror, looking, maybe using a friend, a spouse, someone to kind of tell you how far. How does that look compared to this side? How does it look? Is one closer than the other? And then the next thing you would do is, right, look at the overpressure. So same exact thing. You're coming here, taking your opposite arm that you're not using, and you're gonna push just on the forearm, the middle aspect of the forearm, and you're gonna push in. Give yourself some overpressure. So we're just assessing the elbow joint here. If it's painful, take note of that. If you feel like you're getting a stretch, also take note of that, because that's something we'll have to talk about a little later in a different video. And then of course, compare right to left. Same thing, huh? Left might be a little better here for me. Good. Last one we're gonna assess is gonna be elbow extension, okay? This one I think is pretty simple in my opinion when I look at it, but it's different for everybody. So what we'll do is just simply take the arms out here in front of us and just reach, okay? Do they look similar out to the side here? Pretty good, in my opinion. Going out to the other side. If they're pretty good, awesome, A+. If not, we want to check the joint, give some overpressure, same kind of thing. What we can do here is, in my opinion, it's kind of tough to use the arm to push. So what I would recommend doing is maybe using something like a bench or a table or a kitchen counter. And what I would do is here, I'm gonna kind of kneel down and use this bench here, but my hand's gonna be on a bench here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna extend my arm. I'm gonna take the arm that I'm not using, which is my left arm, place it just above my elbow joint here. My elbow joint's right here, just above on the back of my tricep. Don't press hard, I don't want you to dislocate your elbow or anything, but push in a little bit so we can feel that end range of the joint. And then compare right to left. See, does it feel like a stretch? Does it feel painful? Something we'll talk about in another video. But now you have fully screened your own range of motion of your wrist, forearm, and elbow.